Hi everyone, it's Lit Lessons with GCSE Memes here, providing another video for you, and today it's on A Christmas Carol, and we're looking especially at the figure of Bob Cratchit. So we'll be doing some character analysis of Bob. We'll be looking at some key quotes used by him, the techniques used by him, and likewise we'll be looking at key quotes and techniques used to describe him and about him, and also thinking about the context behind this figure. So before we go any further, let's recap who Bob is. So who is Bob Cratchit? Now Bob Cratchit is an employee of Scrooge. He is Scrooge's clerk. Okay, and a clerk is basically someone who does a bit of everything. Okay, they run sort of general errands for their employer. They might do a bit of cleaning here and there. They might write up letters in neat for their employer. They basically are there to support in whichever way the employer sees fit. And he's also a working class and poor individual, okay, and that's really important to remember about him because that's where all the context marks are behind Bob in my mind. And he's also a father to many, many children, and this is quite typical of the poor at the time, and do say that in a response because I think it's important context to remember that the poor did have a lot of children at that time for both financial reasons as well as for familial reasons as well. And if you want some really high context marks, I'm just going to put this key word on the screen now for you, microcosm, which is a posh word for mini society. And London in A Christmas Carol is very much a mini society that represents the whole of England, a much larger society. And Bob is a microcosm himself, basically represents all working class men in England at that time. And he is mistreated by Scrooge, who becomes a representation and represents all rich business owners. So if you want really high marks, try use this word in your responses and say, well, Bob is actually a microcosm. He represents all the working class men, not just one figure, but many, many figures across the country at that time, and that will hit you those higher marks. So let's have a think about Bob at the start of the novel. Now this is some of the key moments and descriptions of Bob in the first chapter. So first of all, we see straight away this lovely noun cell used to describe the place in which Bob works in Scrooge's counting house. And straight away this suggests that he's almost imprisoned by Scrooge for working in there. Okay, we think of cell, I think of always of prisons. It makes him seem trapped and kind of uncomfortable in a physical and mental sense. We also have a symbolic description of his fire being really small in comparison to Scrooge's, whose fire is also somewhat small in this part as well. And straight away we get this kind of like representation and symbolism of the inequality between these two figures. The fire sizes represent the inequality in pay, the inequality in lifestyle, the inequality in happiness between the higher class and the lower class at the start of this novel. Later on, Fred walks in, Scrooge's nephew, and says, "God bless Christmas," and we see some lovely descriptions of what Bob does here. He involuntarily applauds at this blessing of Christmas, and straight away this adverb used here shows that Bob is someone who loves Christmas. He's very much a typical Victorian in that regard. He doesn't even think before applauding what Fred says. And then later on in this, we see that he puts out his fire, and it seems to be suggesting that Bob actually punishes himself for this applauding and for showing disrespect to Scrooge and being somewhat rude by interrupting the nephew's conversation with Scrooge. Maybe it's a suggestion that he's worried that if he doesn't do this, he'll be punished even worse by Scrooge, but it certainly suggests that he is someone who's frightened of Scrooge and also someone who is kind of downtrodden by him. So that's Bob at the start of the text. We see him next really in most detail when it comes to the Ghost of Christmas Present showing him. And during the Christmas Present we see some lovely more genuine moments of how Bob normally acts. And he's a brilliant family man and father, and that's very clear to see. He says that Tiny Tim is good as gold. He compliments his wife's cooking. He's just a generally very positive character. He's appreciative, even though his life is hard. He actually toasts Scrooge, albeit to his wife's dismay, during the meal. And it shows you that he's just kind of happy to have a job, even if it is a terrible one. He realises that there's people out there with it much worse. He's a practicing Christian. You know, we can talk about how, you know, religion and this being a religious festival is significant. And the fact that he's a practicing Christian, again, would make him seem a very positive character during this quite religious time. And he uses the religious imperative, God bless us, himself in this scene. But ultimately he's financially suffering as well. He is going through hard times. And there's a description of how he's sending some of his older children to work. Quite difficult, painstaking jobs with long hours to try and increase his income and trying to make sure that his family survive as best they can. Now at the end of the novella, things do change for Bob happily, and that's what we'll be looking at now. This is most evident right at the end of the novella, where Bob walks in quite significantly late for him on Boxing Day, having really celebrated Christmas Day to its fullest. And he's actually tricked by Scrooge, who speaks angrily to him, but actually says that he's going to raise his salary, as we see in the end of the purple paragraph here. Now, Bob doesn't really hear what Scrooge says. It actually talks about him thinking about finally knocking him over and standing up for himself. The fact that he doesn't hear about his promotion really suggests he's used to being scolded and told off by Scrooge. He's not used to hearing positive things from him at all, particularly when they're aimed towards him. As well as this, we have it really ending quite positively for Bob, because Scrooge says that he will not only raise his salary but endeavour to assist his struggling family, really try to look after them. So Bob's gratefulness and his positivity are finally rewarded at the end of this story. And then we have this lovely callback to the start of the novel, where the fires and the coal, which was so scarce and non-existent at the start of the story, are now being replaced by lots of coal and the nice big fires, which suggests the warmth and comfort that exists between these two figures now, that they have an improved relationship, one that is on equal standing as well as that. So that's Bob as a little bit of a snapshot from the start, the middle to the end. And what I would suggest you do now is have a go at this question. Explore the significance of Bob Cratchit in A Christmas Carol. Okay, have a go at writing a paragraph on each of the things I've suggested in this mini mind map here. I will put the full text in the description for you, as I always do. And before we go and finish this video as well, I will of course be showing you your GCSE meme. So pause here, have a bit of a go at this question, and let me know how you get on with that. Right, here's your meme for today. I've stolen an I'm in Celebrity image to do that for you. That's how I feel Bob probably felt towards the end of the novel. If you do need anything else, and like I said, if you do find this question hard, do let me know. If you want me to have a look at anything you've written, do so in the comments. Likewise, if you have any requests, throw them in the comments section. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to my channel, please do so, and check out our Instagram as well. Thanks.